It is so fantastic to be here, and I cannot wait to tell you about the equilibrium solution. What if I could show you a world where equilibrium, rather than equity, was the goal? Where it didn't matter what our shape was, our age, our race, our gender, our faith group, where all of who we are was in balance. And we brought balance to our communities, our workplaces, our schools, our friendships, our relationships, where there's no stepping up or down or over, where your unique being resonates with that of others. How could we build such a world? We need an equilibrium solution. The first step is to make bias conscious. And we do this by understanding that we live in a flawed reality. I'm sure you know the scene, even if you haven't seen the whole movie. Neo sits in a winged back chair. Opposite him, Morpheus leans forward intently, scrutinising Neo as he tells him that he is plugged into a machine-made matrix that feeds on human energy. Morpheus gives Neo a choice. You can take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. Or Neo can take the red pill, make the ultimate paradigm shift and find out what's really going on. And we know how that scene ends. Neo takes the red pill and takes this amazing adventure into the true reality. Now, we're a bit like Neo. Not that we're plugged into some matrix that's feeding on our energy to fuel a machine world, but because we have biases that are as powerful and influential as the matrix is for those who are still plugged in. Writing for Psychology Today, Dr. Jim Taylor says the perception is not reality, but it can become a person's reality because perception has a potent influence on how people look at reality. It's so important that we understand that our biases are skewing how we perceive reality, how we look at reality. We so often think that the way that we look at things is the only way and that everybody else is wrong. But by understanding that our biases are skewing our view of reality helps us to broaden out how we look at the world and allows us to see things differently, perhaps from a different perspective. We can also help make bias conscious by really understanding that bias operates in a parallel world to rational and logical thought. Now, when Neo took that red pill, he discovered that there were actually two worlds existing side by side, existing simultaneously. There was the matrix into which everybody was plugged, providing energy for the machine world. And then there was Zion, the world as it really was, grey and stormy, suffering the consequences of global warfare and climactic climate change. Both of these worlds operate simultaneously. I really like that idea of parallel worlds, of parallel universes, because it helps me understand that I have my biases here, instinctive, quick ways of thinking, and then I have my rational and logical thought. And don't we pride ourselves on being rational and logical? But once we understand these parallel worlds that exist, that bias is here, rational and logical thought is here, then we understand that our biases can be influencing the decisions that we make, and we are much less likely to make flawed decisions. Now, the second step towards an equilibrium solution is to see bias as a data point that provides us with valuable new information. Have you heard about the Johari window? In 1955, psychologists Joseph Luft and Harrington Ingham developed the Johari window. It was a simple tool that they used to gain self-knowledge and understanding, and it's made up of 4 quadrants in a square. In the open self is the information that a person knows about themselves and that other people know. In the hidden self is the information that a person knows about themselves, but which is hidden from others. In this top quadrant, the blind spot is where information lies that other people know, but to which the individual is blind. And then if we look through the 4th window, through the unknown self, this is where there's information that neither the person nor others knows about. Now, our biases, they lie in the half of the Johari window that takes up the blind spot and the unknown self. But if we allow people whom we trust to show us our blind spots, and if we have the courage to go into the unknown, we notice the cues, things like physical feelings or emotional cues that are indicating that bias is operating, then we open up a whole new world of information at our fingertips. As we see bias as a data point, we are also able to challenge norms. Now, we have structures and processes in place in our businesses that keep safeguards around emotional safety, physical safety, help a business grow and develop. And then there are those norms as well that just develop in the workplace about who does what, where people sit in the hierarchical social structure. A few years ago, when I was new to a leadership position, it wasn't long before I stepped over an invisible line about how things were done in this particular office. And one of the office staff apologised to me for having got me into trouble with my line manager. Now, I was really taken aback by this. That was a phrase I associated with being a child. But I soon discovered that this was a regular occurrence in the office because my line manager was a passive-aggressive micromanager. Now, I could not change how this person operated, but now that I knew this particular bias about how she operated, that she insisted everybody else followed, now that I knew this, I could let her know that I wasn't going to be treated as a child. Our 3rd step is to focus on progress rather than getting stuck in the precedents. And we do this first by having courageous conversations and then building creative connections. Let's think about courageous conversations. Do you know the name Rosa Parks? The US Congress dubbed her the mother of the modern civil rights movement. On the 1st of December 1955, Rosa Parks said no when a bus driver demanded that she give up her seat to a white man. Her consequent arrest and trial for civil disobedience sparked the Montgomery bus boycott, which was one of the largest civil rights movements against segregation in history. Rosa Parks' courageous conversation consisted of a simple word: no. It's not the length of the conversation that counts, but the courageous intent to bring equilibrium into the world. And then we need to build creative connections. In 1919, Woodrow Wilson, the 28th President of the United States, pulled together his 14 points as a basis for the League of Nations in its infancy. He was building on some tenets of how to bring nations together at the armistice and afterwards. Wilson said that, in effect, all the peoples of the world were united in this interest, and he could see clearly that unless justice was done to everyone, justice would not be done to them as an individual. Wilson was doing something quite unique. He was bringing people together, connecting them in a time of peace. Of course, nations had allied in war, but this was something very new. For his efforts, Woodrow Wilson was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. He was also my great-grandfather's cousin. As we make bias conscious and see bias as a data point for growth and change, as we focus on making courageous, creative progress rather than getting stuck in precedents, then we move towards building equilibrium rather than merely equity. One of the most easily accessible examples of equilibrium rather than equity is the human body. All our body parts have different functions, but they're not all equal. Take the hand and the forearm, for example. The hand can do so much more than the forearm can, but without the forearm, the hand cannot function. Likewise, the toes. Odd appendages on the end of our feet, but if we didn't have them, our balance would be compromised. There's not equity in the body, but there is equilibrium. We are building equilibrium. We are examples of equilibrium rather than equity. And as we move towards the equilibrium solution, my unique being will resonate with yours, and we will all together build balanced perspectives.